Video number 29. So, did you do it? Did you go and read Daniel chapter 7? Read about the fourth fearsome and terrible beast with the 10 horns? And then compare that beast to what Micah wrote in Micah chapter 3? And are you convinced? So, is the book of Daniel now being understood? So, I'm going to read a scripture from Daniel chapter 12. Here we go. It's in Daniel chapter 12, verse 9. And he went on to say, "Go, Daniel, because the words are made secret and sealed up until the time of the end. Many will cleanse themselves and whiten themselves, white outer garments, and they will be refined. And the wicked ones will certainly act wickedly, and no wicked ones at all will understand. But the ones having insight will understand." So I hope you made the comparison and came to the conclusion that, yeah, Scripture really does interpret Scripture. So something important then you need to consider is, how do you whiten yourself, and will you be refined? I guess we'll find out as we go further down the rabbit hole. And Jehovah will indeed let many become obstinate. And so I'm seeing that through my YouTube analytics. I have lost subscribers in the last 2 weeks. But on the other hand, I've gained many more. It's like people are being sifted, refined, separated on a threshing floor. The wheat really is being separated from the chaff. So, is it the fourth fearsome and terrible beast, the one with 10 horns? And if those 10 horns are kings, then are those kings really the heads of Jacob, sons of Jacob during the final part of the days, sons of desolation, the man of lawlessness who's being completely undermined through an operation of error, an operation that Satan himself has used to perpetrate a truly unrighteous deception. A deception that Jesus Christ finds when he does come to his temple. Perhaps I should read that scripture again now. Malachi chapter 3. Yeah. Because it talks about being refined as well. So here we are now in Malachi chapter 3 again. I'll read it again. And hopefully you'll see the connection to Daniel chapter 12, where people who understand do indeed whiten themselves and they're refined. Here we go. Verse 1. Look, I am sending my messenger, and he must clear up a way before me. And suddenly there will come to his temple the true Lord, whom you people are seeking, and the messenger of the covenant, in whom you are delighting. Look, he will certainly come. Jehovah of armies has said. But who will be putting up with the day of his coming? And who will be standing when he appears? For he will be like the fire of a refiner, and like the lye of laundrymen. You'll be whitened. And he must sit as a refiner and a cleanser of silver, and must cleanse the sons of Levi, and he must clarify them like gold and like silver, and they will certainly become to Jehovah people presenting a gift offering in righteousness. So, do you see the connection to Daniel chapter 12? And certainly now, if you're seeing that Scripture does indeed interpret Scripture, then the words of Daniel are now being unsealed during the time of the end. So what next? I think I'll continue reading in Micah chapter 3, where we made the connection. And we should now be understanding exactly what that fourth fearsome and terrible beast is. The beast with the 10 horns. So I'll start in Micah chapter 3 and further down in the chapter, because what's the end result of all of these injustices being perpetrated by the leaders of the people in Jesus Christ's kingdom, the head ones of Jacob, the sons of Jacob? What's going to happen to this kingdom that exists immediately before God's kingdom is established? In fact, God's kingdom is established during the final part of the days. So God's kingdom should become evident before the end. But what is the end of all these injustices being perpetrated by the head ones of Jacob? So I'll start in verse 9 and we'll find out what the end result of this is. Hear please this, you head ones of the house of Jacob, and you commanders of the house of Israel, the ones detesting justice, and the ones who make even everything that is straight crooked, building Zion with acts of bloodshed, and Jerusalem with unrighteousness. So what's unrighteousness? It's the opposite of the truth. Building Jerusalem with lies. Her own head wants judge merely for a bribe, and her own priests instruct just for a price, and her own prophets practice divination simply for money. So, yeah, I've watched quite a lot of ex-Jehovah's Witness videos, and yeah, the governing body is always asking for money. Can you think of anything else more profound than that? They are practicing divination just for money. And they wear their Italian designer suits and Rolex watches and buy $100 bottles of Scotch whiskey, practicing divination for money, building headquarters, fancy residences for themselves to live in while they drink their scotch and their wine and live in their Italian designer suits and buy their Rolex watches, practicing divination for money. Oh, I'll keep reading. Yet, upon Jehovah, they keep supporting themselves. They keep saying, is not Jehovah in the midst of us? There will come upon us no calamity. So, if we are living during the end times, can you think of any religious organization, worldwide religious organization, who make the claim that Jehovah is in the midst of us, and then on top of that make the claim that no calamity will come to us? Can you think of any religious organization who give the sentiments being described here in Micah chapter 3, that Jehovah himself is in the midst of them? I can. Can you? So what happens to these people? It says here in Micah chapter 3 verse 12, therefore on account of you men, Zion will be plowed up as a mere field, and Jerusalem herself will become mere heaps of ruins, and the mountain of the house will be as the high places of a forest. And then, during this time, during the final part of the days, it goes on to say in Micah chapter 4, and it must occur in the final part of the days, that the mountain of the house of Jehovah will become firmly established above the top of the mountains. So while all this is happening, in the final part of the days, God's kingdom is being established. It will not be easily observed. It will start like the tiniest of seeds, a mustard grain. Can you see it? So here it says, is not Jehovah in the midst of us? There will come upon us no calamity. And so now I'm going to connect it back to Isaiah chapter 28. The rulers of the people in Jerusalem, Jesus Christ's kingdom, who make a covenant with death. What do they think? What do those rulers think? No calamity will come to us. Let's go read it. So here we are in Isaiah chapter 28. And this is why it's important to watch that video. Jehovah's Witnesses, the governing body, really are the rulers of God's people. The people in Jesus Christ's kingdom. The kingdom infested with Satan's weeds. So here we go. Listen to what it says here in Isaiah chapter 28. Therefore hear the word of Jehovah, you braggarts, you rulers of this people who are in Jerusalem, because you men have said, we have concluded a covenant with death, and with Sheol we have effected a vision. The overflowing flash flood, in case it should pass through, will not come to us, for we have made a lie our refuge, and in falsehood we have concealed ourselves. Remember what it said in Micah chapter 3? Is Jehovah not in the midst of us? No calamity will come to us. Do you see the connection? Yet here in Micah chapter 3, it says this, therefore on account of you men, Zion will be plowed up as a mere field, and Jerusalem herself will become mere heaps of ruins. Keep that in your mind, and we'll go back and read a scripture that I've read so often. Isaiah chapter 66 and verse 5. Hear the word of Jehovah, you men who are trembling at his word, your brothers that are hating you, that are excluding you by reason of my name, said, may Jehovah be glorified. They think Jehovah is in the midst of them. He must also appear with rejoicing on your part. And they are the ones that will be put to shame. Now here's where it connects to Micah chapter 3. Jerusalem will become mere heaps of ruins. Listen to what it says next in Isaiah chapter 66. There is a sound of uproar out of the city. Jerusalem. A sound out of the temple. Which temple? Remember in Malachi? And suddenly the Lord will come to his temple. A sound out of the temple. It is the sound of Jehovah repaying what is deserved to his enemies. But what about that fourth terrible, fearsome beast with the 10 horns? What happens to that? Let's go back to Daniel chapter 7. So here it is in Daniel chapter 7, the end result of that fourth terrible and fearsome beast that will be here during the time of the end. I'll start in verse 26. And the court itself proceeded to sit, and his own rulership they finally took away in order to annihilate him and to destroy him totally. And the kingdom and the rulership and the grandeur of the kingdoms under all the heavens were given to the holy ones of the Supreme One. Their kingdom is an indefinitely lasting kingdom, and all the rulerships will serve and obey even them. Are you them? If so, you'll need to obtain those white outer garments and whiten yourselves. And you will need to allow yourselves to be refined by Jesus Christ, who sends a helper to that future audience of excommunicated Christians. And their grief will be turned into joy. Is that you? There's something you need to do. Whiten yourselves. Obtain those white outer garments. Observe God's commandments. You, in turn, are to bear witness. Bear witness concerning sin, concerning righteousness, and concerning judgment. What judgment? This judgment. The court itself proceeded to sit. This is the judgment. That fourth terrible, fearsome beast will be annihilated totally